like to call the Peoria Public Schools Board of Education meeting for November 27, 2017 to order. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Jackson.
Here.
Ms. Ruffin. Ms. Edwards.
Here.
Dr. Davison Aviles.
Still here.
Mr. Shaw.
Here.
Mr. Adler.
Here.
Mrs. Ross.
Here.
Dr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight's announcements, Mr. Wilson.
The PTO Council will meet Tuesday, November 28th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Administration Building. The group will be sharing ideas on holiday activities for PTOs, as well as discussing potential goals for the 18-19 school year. Information on the 5 Essentials Survey, Junior Achievement Opportunities for School, the PPS Sex Education Curriculum, and the School Enrollment/Demographic Study Overview will all be shared with our district's PTO leaders.
Thank you. Other announcements, Ms. Jackson?
The Woodruff Career and Technical Center Cosmetology Salon and Barbershop are open to the public on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays beginning this week. The salon opens at noon, and clients are accepted until 3:30 p.m. on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and until 1 p.m. on Fridays. The WCTC Salon also is open the first and the second Saturdays of each month from 9 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. The WCTC Salon and Barbershop offers haircuts and styling for men, women, and kids, hair braiding, facials, pedicures, manicures, and waxings. All work is performed by our students. Walk-ins are welcome. Please call 309-282-6644 for more information. And let me give you that number again, 309-282-6644.
Thank you. Mr. Waller?
The 34th Annual Night Before Christmas Richwoods High School Craft Show will be this Saturday, December 2nd, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The night before Christmas features 200 vendors offering strictly handicraft items, including home and yard decorative arts, apparel, gourmet food items, jewelry, and more. Concessions will be available. All proceeds from the event support Richwoods High School student extracurricular activities.
Thank you. Dr. Wow.
Buenas noches, bienvenidos, good evening, welcome. Celebran felices fiestas en el estilo Renaissance, because I don't know how to translate Renaissance. Asistiendo una cena de madrigal de escuelas públicas de Peoria, completamente con payasos, músicos, drama, humor y cantando villancicos. Celebrate the holidays Renaissance style. Thank you for coming. Celebrate the holidays Renaissance style by attending a Peoria Public School madrigal dinner, complete with jesters, strolling musicians, drama, humor, and caroling. Richwoods High School madrigals will be held Friday, December 8th, and Saturday, December 9th at 6 p.m., and Sunday, December 10th at 1:30 p.m. For ticket information, call 309-693-4400. Again, that's 309-693-4400. Then the following weekend, the Peoria High School Preparatory School for the Arts Madrigal Dinner will be held on Saturday, December 16th at 6 p.m. The PHS Madrigal Dinner will be catered by the WCTC Culinary Arts students. Well, they do a great job. For information and tickets, please call 309-672-6630. Again, that's 309-672-6630.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
The opening of the 5 Essential Survey has been delayed by the State of Illinois and the University of Chicago until December 5th. Watch for further communication from your school and on the district website about the upcoming 5 Essential Survey. 4th grade through 12th grade students, all staff and parents, will be asked to participate to help us identify strengths and weaknesses of each school across our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Atler, did you have an announcement? No announcements? Okay. Thank you. Tonight's Community Contribution Award recognizes community leaders that nearly everyone knows, but we want to recognize him for his work with our students. The Honorable James E. Shattuck worked with district staff this semester to invite some of our 8th grade students to the Civic Center to participate in one of the largest naturalization ceremonies in the country. He also spent time with the students ahead of the ceremony to help them understand how the important process works. But that's not all. He regularly invites Horizon Club students to his courtroom to share about his role as a federal judge. Judge Shattuck, would you come to the podium and tell us in the audience a little bit more about why you do this and what the impact is?
Well, thank
How
you,
are you?
thank you,
Welcome.
President Ross, and to all of you, thank you for inviting me tonight, and Dr. Karat, thank you as well. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you and your staff and the people that helped my office make this happen, which leads to the reason I do these things. I realize that none of us succeed on our own. Somewhere along the way, at some point, someone put in a good word, opened a door, provided an opportunity, provided some guidance, and I just simply feel that we should be that for others. I was a product of the public schools, having gone to Peoria High School, and so I have an interest in your schools. You have a good story. I encourage you to keep telling it. I enjoy the kids. I enjoy the experience that we have, the exchanges that we have, whether it be in my courtroom or whether if I go to the schools or like at the naturalization ceremony. They're curious, they're inquisitive, they're smart, they're respectful. They handle themselves very well. And I just think if we can share these experiences that we have because somebody helped us, then they can make the right choices for themselves, and then they can be that for others. So it's really as simple as that. I will continue to do it. I enjoy doing it, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you tonight, and thank you very much for the acknowledgement.
Thank you so much, Judge
you.
Shattuck. On behalf of the Board of Education, we appreciate your willingness to work with our students and want to say thank you with a small token of our appreciation Dr. Karat has.
Does it? Very good.
So,
Well,
thank you, Judge.
thank-
Appreciate you, and we're looking forward to continuing that collaboration. The naturalization ceremony was amazing. What, close to over 700
over 700.
naturalized?
We had 420-some students. Dr. Karat was our keynote speaker, and so she lit the place up.
That was fun.
Thank you.
Actually, you did an amazing job.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
here.
Thank you.
Thank
Keep up the
you.
good work.
And now, Ms. Douglas, would you take the podium? And introduce our student showcase event.
All right, hi guys. At each of our Board of Education meetings, we want to feature the reason we are all here. our students. Our students showcase will recognize students for academic achievements, athletics, successes, and service to others. Tonight, our student showcase features some of our successful athletes at both the middle and high schools. We will start with our middle school girls JV basketball championship winners from Sterling Middle School. When Ms. Lane, the principal of Sterling, and any other coaches that are here tonight come to the podium to assist me in presenting tonight's winners. You want to read off the names? Because I don't want to butcher them.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to have Sterling girls recognized tonight. Our JV was 14-0, and our varsity team was 13-1 for the season. So they did an awesome job. Coach Burdette led the girls to the victory. She was unable to come tonight, but I do have some of the girls with me. Girls, when I call your name, if you want to come on up, okay? Aaliyah Guyton. Alana Jackson. Denia Kelly. Kennedy Tompkins. Tiana Ward. And Elizabeth Scott. Thank you, girls.
Congratulations, congratulations.
Yeah, okay. Did you read the whole? Okay. Okay, these girls are here. Yeah, thank you. All those girls were present. Okay. Finally, tonight, Dr. Coleman and any other coaches that are here with us tonight come to the podium to help us recognize the Peoria High cross-country team. Dr. Coleman, before you and your staff announces the team members that are here with us tonight, would you please share with us, with our audience, the reason for their recognition?
This is Nettie, one of my former students, back a few weeks ago. Thanks for having the PHS CC team here tonight. We're proud to be Peoria High School Lions and proud to be Peorians. The background for this meet is about 50 years in the fall at Detwater, these kind of kids have put the meet together. And without their help, it couldn't be done. If you've never been to a meet on that Saturday morning, the first weekend in November, it's a special place to be. Temporarily, it becomes a small city. And the kids build the city. The kids pretty much build the city for us. If you've not seen it, please go. Extraordinary event. Over bits and pieces of 2 weeks, this bunch drove fence posts to accommodate 2 miles of snow fence and rebar to handle 3 miles of pennant stretching. During the meet, they involved in hydrating. On Friday night, they involved having packages for the visiting coaches. Now, I'm an old history teacher, and everybody here was taught how to drive fence posts, how to stretch the fence. They got gloves and they got instructions. And following that, they're put in teams. And we told them go point A, point B, and so on and so forth to put the meet together. It was truly amazing. It's always been amazing. And all of a sudden, the fences are in place. In fact, when I see them drive those fence posts, I have to kind of laugh. Some of our smaller women here look like Gandhi dancers who drove those spikes in for the railroad making our country. All the gals and the guys, the exact same kind of work. and it was enjoyable to see. Mr. Stever will tell you, it was an extraordinary bunch this year. It was so much joy they had. It was really pretty special bunch of kids this year. Hours of work. Now, once they're done setting everything up, you got to tear it back down again. It's done very neatly, calmly, bundled up, and put away for next year. And next year, this bunch, by the way, most are back next year. I think pretty much only lose one or two seniors. The rest are on their class kids, so it should be easier for us. I'd like you now to meet them. So you guys, just when I call your name, just stand and stay put, okay, for us? Jacob Berry. Stay right there, please. Isaac Bushnell. Centris Ellis. Centris Ellis. Dana Heerman. Kamijah Langford. Now, to be honest with you, she's kind of the brains for the outfit, to be honest with you. She does an awful lot of stuff for the coaches, so she's really appreciative for her ability to keep us on track. Martin Maloney. Dimitri Mason. Gavin Mitchell. Kentrell Moulton. Amitria Rutherford. She's now called Shuttle Rutherford, aren't you, kid? You've been renamed by your teammates. It's an inside joke for the team. Trinity Sankey. Cairo Thomas. Nariah Marshall. Aaron McCurdy. Quentin Chambers. John Velasquez. Did I get everybody here? Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron McCurdy. Now, I've done this for a long time. This is about a lot of years for me. And it's so important that people realize in Peoria, these are the common kids in our school building. They're the ordinary people in our building. They're not the exception. They really aren't. Our hallways are full of kids just like this bunch here. And so often, we don't give enough credit for doing the ordinary things for us. In this group, there are student council members. Kids are bound for med school, engineering, teaching. Ordinary kids, just like we were, on our growth process. As Mr. who said this earlier, Judge Shad had said it, basically because they're just like we were. They kiss their girlfriends in the hallway, or their boyfriends. There's not much difference going on. Not much difference. It's the same stuff over again. And so we are very proud of them. Peoria High School is a working school. I was there today by sheer chance, makes around the kids up. I walked down the hallway, looked in the classrooms, learning's going on. You can see it, and I say you can smell it. When you can see it, you can also smell it. The kids are involved and encourage themselves to be better students. And so I'm glad to have her my boss, and it's been a great experience for me working for Peoria High School. I retired in 2006, and I'm still there coaching. It's been a lot of fun for me. So are we excused now to head these kids home? Is that right or no? Thanks for having us.
Before you go, are there any other teachers or parents present tonight? Additional coaches?
Please stand for us.
Parents? I was hoping we'd get the other group that left, the parents from that group too, but.
No, it's your principal. She's shy. She's still in bed.
Dr. Coleman, you didn't have anything to say? No. He said it all, right? All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Douglas.
How are you?
Okay, we are now where? District presentations. The first presentation is on the audit. Carla, Benjamin, you're going to be part of that? Or is that, no? Okay, just you, okay.
We have a contest.
Okay, good. You introduce, you talk, we'll listen.
Good evening, School Board, Dr. Crott, President Ross. Tonight we have the annual audit presentation. We have to have Chris figure out this when we get to that, but sure, I don't have something set up properly. It's not a PDF. Or it's a PDF, not a- Oh, there we are. That's fine, I can do it. I wanted to say a few words before I turn it over to the fine team from Clifton Larson Allen. For the audience and anybody on the television that don't know me, my name is Mike McKenzie. I'm the comptroller of the school district. So one of the major jobs I do every year is coordinate the financial audit. As a school district, we're required to have a financial audit every year, and Clifton Larson Allen has done it for several years. So tonight we have Adam Pulley, who is the principal in charge of the audit. We have Lindsay Samp, who is the manager in charge of the audit, and we have Tom Burrows, who is the senior accountant in charge of the audit. So they spend a huge amount of time here. Tom, I think, spent every day for 2 months, 3 months in my old office here in the middle of the building. So everybody gets to know the accountants when they're here. But I left at your spot this evening the end result of the audit, which you have this is the financial report, which is the standard financial report that comes out of every audit. You also have a couple letters from the auditors, and then you have the annual financial report, which is required by ISB, the state annual financial report, which there won't be any tests on it, and I don't really expect you to read every word of it. I did, and they did many, many times, but the reports will be, I'll get those to Chris to post onto the district website tomorrow. So I've not sent it to him yet, and I wanted to present it to you before we post it on the website. Every year we spend a lot of time planning for the audit. We do have one change this year that I wanted to talk a little bit about. As you know, we've had slower and slower payments from the state, and one of the big things you talk about in accounting is revenue recognition. And so we had a lot of discussions about revenue recognition, how we're going to do accrual. This school district uses what we call modified accrual-based accounting. Most school districts in this area use cash basis, and so there's always a little bit of comparability about that. And so this year we talked about these delays of payments and how we recognize, do our revenue recognition. And we surveyed we talked to the auditors, we talked to ISB, we surveyed our peer districts, we looked at every district in the state from Chicago down to all the accrual-based accounting things, and we were doing our revenue recognition different than a lot of school districts. So we've now changed that. So there is some prior period, what they call prior period adjustments in there. If you really, it's beyond the scope of this meeting to talk into detail about that, but I did want to point that out. But this will more accurately, or not necessarily accurately, but it'll align us better with the way cash comes into the district. It'll align us better with our peer districts and other districts in the school or in the state about how we do our revenue recognition. So, but essentially what that boils down to is the categoricals like transportation and special ed, we're recognizing the revenue, differently than we did before, but it aligns us better with other districts. It doesn't change any of the day-to-day operations. It doesn't change how any cash flows. It just changes how we do our accrual-based accounting. So, and like I said, if later meetings or private meetings, if you'd like to talk about that more, I'd gladly go through it in a lot greater detail than we have time for tonight. We'd be here all night, and nobody wants that. So So now, Adam Poley is going to go through a presentation about the actual audit. I just wanted to preface it with that, so.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mike. Good evening, everybody. Mike did a good job of introductions as well as introducing the reports that have been issued, and I saw that he was passing them around earlier, so honestly, I'm going to try to be pretty brief in my comments tonight. Frankly, I'm going to go, as I did last year, through all those documents that we passed out just through usage of this PowerPoint presentation. So, with that said, skipping to slide 2 there, as Mike mentioned, we issued financial statements as well as annual financial report, which include a single audit over federal programs. We issued an unmodified or a clean opinion over the single audit as well as the financial statement. So that is the best opinion that we can give. On page 1 of the financial statements, you don't need to turn to it, but this is where you would find the statement of net position. It would show total assets and deferred outflows of $309 million for the district as of year end. Total liabilities and deferred inflows are $312, which has the district in a deficit net position on the full accrual basis of $3 million. Skipping to slide 3, there's plenty of footnotes that come with the financial statements, and we just sort of pulled out a couple bullets here and there. Noted here, there was $3 million in capital asset additions during the current year. There was a little over $27 million of bonds issued, $2.9 million of bonds retired, as well as $4.7 of rent fund bond payments, or capital leases, if you will. The net effect of the pension-related activity, this is IMRF plus TRS, resulted in a decrease in the net position during the current year of $3 million on the full accrual statements. And as Mike mentioned, within the footnotes, there will be a disclosure regarding the prior period adjustments or restatements, as I have noted here, to show how that impacted the general fund, the transportation fund, and then the government-wide statements as a whole. The next few slides, 4, 5, and 6, are really for reference for everybody. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them. This revenue one here, as you can see, it shows all the funds. It has the blue bar as being the budget figures for FY17. So the second purple bar is the revenue for last year of each fund, and then the last one is the current year revenue. Not a whole lot of change or unexpected things, in my opinion, that pop out here. The one thing I will mention is on the Ed Fund, over there on the far left, you can probably see that it looks like the revenues increased by a good amount, and the totals are there at the bottom. The totals would reflect a $16 million increase in revenues, and that's a little misleading. As you might recall, the state makes a benefits payment to TRS on behalf of the school district. This is not cash that actually comes to the school district and gets paid out. Nevertheless, by accounting standards, it needs to be recorded as a revenue and an expense. So that was about, if I remember correctly, I think 49 million compared to 42 last year. So that $7 million increase is reflected in this bar graph right here. So it's not quite $16 million, it's about more like 9. You'll see the next thing on the next slide, impacting the expenditure side. If it wasn't for that $7 million change of that on behalf, I really feel like it seems like all the graphs would be pretty much in line, frankly, for all the funds. So, the next slide 6, this is the fund balance of various funds. I wanted to point out a few things here. If you look on the far left or the education fund, you'll notice that middle graph, which would represent the fund balance as of the end of last year, looks like it went down by a lot. Now that figure is reflective of the prior period adjustment that Mike has referred to. And so that amount of $6.4 million that impacted it is reflected there. And so that's why it had that large change. Similarly, in the transportation fund, sort of in the middle of that graph, a similar story. Because of the prior period adjustment, there was $3.6 million. That's where that decrease is reflected. Otherwise, on this slide, I would say the one thing that really pops out is the capital projects fund. The purple bar to the red bar, it increased dramatically, and that is simply reflective of the $27 million of bond proceeds that came in during the fiscal year. The next slide is covers one of those letters that Mike referred to. Our letter to governance is going to be the thick letter that you would have in front of you. This is our opportunity to express to the board if we came across any disagreements with management, if we came across any problems during the audit. I'm happy to say there were none. There is other language within the letter. Honestly, it's largely boilerplate language that goes over accounting policies and estimates, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide here. Last slide, actually, is slide 8, being the findings. And you may or may not recall from last year, the district had 3 findings. They have whittled it down to 1 finding. And that 1 finding would be the fact that we as external auditors come in and help the district put together those financial statements in totality, so all the full accrual statements as well as all the disclosures in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That is a very common finding that we have on many of our clients. But I thought that the fact that the district went from 3 findings to 1 was certainly a marked improvement, needless to say. And I also wanted to mention, frankly, that I thought management did a great job this year on the audit. The audit report was issued before November 15th this year. I've only been a part of the audit for about 2 or 3 years now. And talking with Mike and other folks, to my understanding, the audit report has not been issued before November 15th for a while now, I think at least a decade, to my understanding. Frankly, that is a testament to management at the district. They took on more responsibilities during the year that allowed for us to get things done more timely, as well as it allowed for us to have less of our time involved in the audit. So as a result of us having less hours in the audit and getting done more timely, there were cost savings for this year compared to the past, I want to say 3 or 4 years it was of the audit fees. So I very much appreciate management's help and their patience with us during the process. And honestly, that's really all I had as far as a presentation. So hopefully that wasn't too quick for everybody. Mike, I don't know if there's anything that you wish to add, or if there's any...
Just if anybody has any questions.
The other 2 people have anything to say?
What does Tom or Lindsay have anything to say?
Okay. Any questions of the report from the audit? We have lots of homework, reading. Sir?
No.
Was that a no? Oh. All right.
I did want to publicly thank Mike McKenzie for coordinating the audit on behalf of the district. To most people, moving from 3 findings to 1 finding, I mean, nobody has any idea how gargantuan a task that is. That's seldom done. It's difficult when you get down to 3 or 4 findings. It's difficult to move from that 3 or 4 down to 1. And I would say it's more common, far more common, for districts to carry those 3 or 4 findings into perpetuity. So Mike did a phenomenal job taking us from last year's 3 to this year's 1. And we have even had some discussions about clearing off that 1 next year. So I just wanted to publicly thank Mike and also the auditors for phenomenal work. They all worked in partnership to really deliver statements for us on a timely manner. That's not been done in a while. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That's good news. When my conversation with Mr. Pulley was how much money did we save? He said we saved some. So, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. And now, Program Budget Committee presentation.
Carla Eman.
Yes.
And Josh.
Okay. So So we're also adding PLC and transportation update. Ms. Eman and Mr. Collins.
Good evening. We are going to go ahead and go through our agenda tonight. PLC subcommittee recommendations and next steps is the one area, and then just a general transportation update that Josh will share with you. I think it's always important to go back to our strategic plan. Honestly, we feel as management that we have set the standards and we have set PLCs, for example, the way, the best way that we possibly could, just the way it is right now. But we do have Pillar 5, and within that, we have to, in some way, cut expenses to match revenue. And that's why we gathered together into these committees in order to address that. So the purpose of the PLC subcommittee, again, is to re-envision the PLC time for high schools in the core areas, English, math, social studies, and science during the 17-18 school year.
Would you let the public know what PLC is?
Oh, yes, professional learning communities.
Thank you.
So what we wanted to look at is first the parameters to preserve the PLC concept at the high school level, and then provide as much consistency as possible to students and their families, not making a lot of changes or having one grade level different than another. We really wanted to keep it as consistent as we could, cause the least amount of disruption to the school day, and the ability to easily add PLC days if desired, and affect primary and middle schools as little as possible, because we remember last year's when we addressed that area and really worked hard with the different departments to figure out the best setup, and that was to have 2 PLCs in the primary and 3 in the middle schools. It's embedded within the day.
Can you share with the public what happens during that time? What it is?
Yes, okay, so during these PLC times, the teachers, of course, have their regular prep times, as we know, where they work individually, but the PLC times is where they can work together in groups. It could be all of the science teachers working in one room, or a group of them at a certain level. It could also be different grade levels working together. I'm just thinking for the primary, working together. So it's just a chance for the teachers to work together to kind of come up with, it could be different areas within the curriculum, areas they could improve in, just opportunities for improvement and changes in order to best address the students in their building. If there's any other pieces to go with that. Okay, then another piece we were looking for being able to do, and we're pretty excited that that can be part of the recommendation, was to provide the value-added services organizationally through the addition of teacher leaders, or some may remember them as department chairs, that we have, even with our current setup for PLCs, there's some problems, problem isn't really the word, but it's been more difficult to oversee them when you have the principal and their team. The idea that you could have a teacher leader that could also kind of oversee the PLCs, especially in high schools where you have, English going on maybe in one area, and you'll have math in another, just a chance to have one more person that can kind of oversee it would be helpful. And then we, of course, substantially contribute to the financial stability of the district through whatever we were to come up with. So the recommendation is to replace the current school day PLC model, where it's embedded in the school day for the core teachers at the high schools, with a before school PLC model 3 times per week. With this, there would be delay the starting time by at least 30 minutes. We're thinking right around approximately 30 minutes to facilitate before school PLCs for the core high school teachers. And then we would be able to keep the primary and middle school PLCs the same, and then utilize contractual SIP days, which are training that occurs as part of the teacher contract quarterly throughout the year, that we would be able to use that time for all the high school teachers. So we're talking PE, arts teachers, they would all be able to be part of this PLC group then during that time, and then also be able to utilize the contractual faculty meeting days monthly for PLCs, and again, to allow all of the high school teachers during that time. And then again, as I said, provide those value-added services of having teacher leaders would be combined into this. We're looking at 4 to 5 per building. The fifth one then would be more the non-core, we're talking the arts, PE, kind of to oversee that area. If we were to implement all of these changes, that's approximately a $500,000 savings. This is caused by not needing as many staff during the school day because you are going ahead and doing these activities before school. This takes into account paying teachers for that time before school. So the next steps, what we want to do is not ask for a vote tonight, but to just receive feedback between now and the next board meeting, be open to comments. We also will then plan on doing that final PLC presentation at the December 11th, which is the only meeting during December, at that board meeting for a final vote. And what that would be, you need to keep in mind, we have to work with the teacher union on an MOU. For the before-school PLC time. So we have other work to do. What we're looking for then is approval from you to move forward to work with the union on this. And then the next step after that would be to communicate to the public about the delayed start time for the schools. This is not flipping schedules like we talked before. This is simply taking everything as it is and then just sliding it forward slightly in order to make it a reasonable time for teachers at the high school level to join together before school. So that's the direction we're going. I don't know if there's any questions at this point, or if you want to wait till the end after we do our kind of review of where we're at for the transportation piece.
That's the direction we're proposing.
Yes, this is the direction that we're proposing.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah, because if I wait, I'm going to forget.
Okay.
So, if I understand it correctly, PLC oversight then will be managed by teacher leaders?
It will be a combination. It would be the principal, the assistant principals in the building, and also the teacher leader. And so this is going to add more staff to kind of oversee and make sure that we're all sticking together and going in the same direction in these different, because what I picture is just kind of different classrooms around the building so that they can oversee the different activities that are going on.
Dr. Bob, when it's done correctly, it is done by teachers and teacher leaders.
Okay, well, so that would presume, though, that the teacher leader would, whoever that person is, would have additional duties than what they're doing right now. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
And in that case, how would that person be assisted in preserving or being able to do what they're doing, even though they've got...
Okay, yes, yes, they would have, not have another period added to their day. They would still have that other free period within the day built into their day still, even with this model. As in, other teachers, it would be all before school time that they're paid for, but that lead teacher would still have a period during the day.
Okay, and is there any financial compensation for lead teachers?
Oh, I got to think back to that one.
The period,
Yeah, just that
period.
period.
Just the
Yeah,
period during the day, but nothing else on top of that,
right.
which they're already getting anyway,
Right,
right?
right.
So
And
I'm
when they
still
come-
trying, forgive me on this, I'm still trying to remember. It sounds like we're adding additional duties, but not adding additional time or compensation for it. Is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it isn't. They will come in, they'll be reimbursed, right?
Yeah, I thought I just heard it was
For
not to be reimbursed.
for that time.
For the time before
The time before
school, as
school.
everyone else would be, that
And
yes,
then
they will be
This
for
leader
that.
gets an extra bonus. Everybody else, for example, will teach
The 6 periods per day.
6 periods, but
And-
that person, that leader, would teach 5 periods, as conceptualized currently. This is our best thinking, and so it's just sort of throwing it out, and, right? So this is where we are right now. And so, yeah, there's some compensation for coming in early, and additionally, if you're deemed the leader, you would be
You have a
sort
free
of
period too.
be rewarded with a less, just like you're a professor, you would have instead of 5 classes, you'd have to teach 4 classes. And you can use that period for whatever needs to be done. So the leader gets 2 things.
Would you talk to my dean and let her know too? So, that would be really nice. And one last thing, do we anticipate any extracurricular involvement? That is, will there be outside of school, like, responsibilities that have to happen either outside the school day or on the weekend or anything like that?
No, I'm not sure what you're, not necessarily, no.
Not with that
Shouldn't
type
be
of work. See, what they're doing,
Okay.
that period, it's an opportunity to go deeper, and we have conversations, for example, about the 6 Cs. How can our lessons be much more creative and more exciting, and, they're sharing, they're brainstorming around lessons for students. So it's all about better lesson planning, or it could be, I went to a conference and whatever. So it's really supports for themselves around curriculum and activities for kids and improving that. And for me personally, taking that learning in a deeper way, in a deeper place.
Thanks, Carl.
Mr. Walker.
So am I clear, this recommendation is from the administration part? Have you had feedback? Has there been feedback from teachers at this point to this part, or is that what you're asking for now?
Yeah, we are at that point now. My understanding is that the union had done a survey to get responses there. Otherwise, yes, we just have one union person on the committee at this point, and we all worked together. We were kind of at a standstill. Then we talked about, just a couple more ideas, and suddenly it just all fell into place. And so we're pretty excited about it. But we know that, yes, we do still need to work with the union.
The reason I commented on that, I had the opportunity to stop by Richwoods High School about 6 weeks ago, and the principal took me to the PLC meeting that was going on in the math department. And I was really impressed. They were working on testing and what was going on there, and there was a lot of brainstorming going on, and the teachers were really involved. I mean, the principal and I came in there, and they basically ignored both of us, which was probably a good thing. But they were really involved, and it was doing a lot. And I just would hate to see that kind of thing be curbed in any way with what they're doing and stuff with it, so.
Right. I mean, I think that we know that we have the Cadillac model right now, but we have to continue to look, but can we afford that? And the answer right now is we cannot. So we wanted to come up with something that was as close as we possibly could, that could still address the needs of the district.
And, great comment, Mr. Walther, and actually the principal, Richwood's principal, is on that committee. It's an eclectic group, including union representation. I do agree that I would say a recommendation would be after this presentation, and that's why we're not asking the board to vote. It's just sort of informational, and
Thank you.
it's to, again, pull the union in and make sure that this idea trickles down to the, to our staff. But Carl is absolutely right. We do have a Cadillac model. I was at another district where it was totally gutted, and because of finances, and that's not what the committee has recommended to me. They looked at a variety of models and made lots of adjustments, and we believe this current proposal is a good one, unless if somebody and individuals have additional ideas to even take it to the next level. So we're trying to balance. We don't want to take it away, still give teachers the opportunity to collaborate around curriculum assessment and instruction, but also, on the other hand, making sure that we're doing our due diligence with the budget.
Trickle down's not my favorite theory, but I appreciate the effort of the administration. Thank you.
I was basically going to ask the question, as these groups get together, will they be discussing real cases, real issues that kids have that would be looked at and solved as a group, or is it just,
Yeah,
do they have
definitely.
particular kids that they want to work harder with or deeper with to move them to the next level?
Yep, so there are usually 4 questions. What do we want our kids to learn? So it's standards related, how are they doing, and what are we going to do if they're not learning, and what are we going to do if they're really getting it in terms of acceleration and
Right, so no
answer
particular kids, just questions, okay.
questions, and then, yeah, because you have to have your roster and your kids,
Okay.
right, to answer. Number 1, there's some conversation around standards, right, Susan and the team? And then, and there's at least those 4 questions. What else happens during PLCs? If,
A lot of data analysis and problem solving.
Yeah, because I know some other districts that really get together around certain issues that groups of kids are having to talk among themselves about how to.
so how are kids doing also? It's like, how are they doing? So that's where that comes in.
Okay.
We talked about an injection of SEL into the PLCs as well.
That's correct.
Mr. Booth as well. So
Yep.
that provides an opportunity, look at SEL data.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Did you have
Wells.
another slide?
And
I believe
transportation
we
has
are
to come
going
in.
on to the transportation
Oh,
update.
Mr. Shaw.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Shaw, I didn't see
Oh,
you.
sorry.
And I think Mr. Adler had one as well. I just had a question about the process. Assuming things go well and the board approves on December 11th, the MOU, does that come back to the board, or is that,
Yes, it would still have to come back through the board.
okay, okay.
But what we're looking for at the next meeting, just to be clear again, is that you approve that we would move forward with this plan. And so then our next step would be to work with the union. And then, again, if that goes okay, then we need to start communicating with the public. How I kind of mentioned the last time, we were looking at public forums. And so we'd like to start those then in January to kind of share information. And then this kind of then morphs into the transportation area, but then we'll have more information to share at that time too, so we'll want to really get out there. And we talked about, I think even in those past slides of Sterling School was one of them, just get out to about 3 different schools and really communicate it out. And in fact, Mick and I and Josh will be going to the meeting tomorrow night, the PTO meeting, to kind of bring parents up to date too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Adler.
Thank you, Ms. Amon. Just to kind of, I guess, take us back maybe a meeting or two, this is like that first milestone decision in our kind of program budget cascade, I guess, of decisions that really help set us up for the rest of the things we're planning for next year.
Right. It's really, we had to kind of take a step back, and that's why it took us a little while to get going this time around, to see, well, what had to come first? You know, it was kind of the cart or the horse again, that what could we really make a difference on? And then, how do we work up to this whole, it's the transportation, I use the word morphed, but kind of morphs into the boundary study and what you can do before and after. So Josh is going to kind of share some of the areas that we covered. They're all difficult, and that's what I have to say over and over. It's not easy. We don't think these are good solutions and happy solutions always, but we had to talk about these areas to just see where cuts could possibly be made, what we as a group considered, oh yeah, we just can't really go that way. I couldn't support it even among ourselves, to where, hey, we got to keep talking in that area and see what can be done. So nothing that Josh is about to talk about or talk to is pleasant or great, but at the same time, I brought him here to go ahead and, share, some of our thoughts. And then, as I said, then it kind of morphs into this other committee in the end.
Ms. Jackson,
Have we
were you done?
really thought through how we would communicate with the public about the delayed time, so that we have no one coming back saying, I didn't know about it?
I think I will work with Chris Copeland very closely, and I
We're
think
not there yet.
Yeah, it would be something that we have to pull together, and I think we did fine with our reconfiguration, so I feel like we'll be fine with this as well. We just have to work together and get the word out when that time is right.
Yeah, and based on the timeline, we're ahead of time, so that would be, is that what you were going to say, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're talking about it now.
Right.
In the event that we would have some change, in the event we would need to communicate some change, you're talking about something that would be in place August of 2018. And so we're almost a year away from that. And our hope is that we would make whatever decisions we need to make very soon, give ourselves plenty of time to communicate, all that kind of, that's why we're talking about it right now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we don't forget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Allen had another question.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that, the two topics we probably got the most communication on last year from community members, teachers, parents were the consideration of the start time change and the consideration of, reducing the PLCs. I know that we had a teacher union representative on the committee. I would just say, I would encourage us to identify some really solid avenues to gain broader boots on the ground feedback. Because I think that's the last thing the board wants is, we say, all right, start running. And then, we get screams from the choir that, no, you need to stop. So.
Yeah, and we may get screams because it is a change. It's the proposed discussion that we're having right now. It's a change from decades of doing business the way we've done it. So I'm just saying, and I'm putting everybody, I'm putting everybody on notice, we will get screams.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with strong feedback and certainly related to education, on certain topics, we're always going to get it. But let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. Let's make sure that we go above and beyond and over-communicate, over-request input so that it can't be like we did this in the dark of night with 50 people in a boardroom.
Sure.
Go ahead, Dr. Rob.
I've been married for 31 years. Screams I'm used to. And please don't mistake my curiosity for criticism. It's really not. I'm just curious about it. And it's in that spirit that I'm wondering about the next thing is how, and you know what, I'll bet you this is probably more in the granular level, and if it is, just let me know, and we can move on. But in terms of how this interfaces, well, we heard a little bit about interfacing with SEL, but how this interfaces with NTSS, and that they'll be part, one presumes that they'll be hand-holding there, correct?
Right. I think
Okay.
it should all work together. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where we're headed.
Thank you.
There's a consideration of the boundary study all in, before any changes in that. All that's involved in this consideration?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
kind of like the next step. And so why don't we go ahead, let Josh give his piece here, and then you'll see how it kind of winds into that.
All right, good evening. I got a wonderful introduction from Carla. I appreciate that. I just wanted to start real quick and say that Mr. Lawless was my history teacher in 1993 when I was at Peoria High, and he looks pretty good. So, all right, my bit. Okay, so purpose of Transportation Subcommittee, again, we want to look at transportation efficiencies. And we would kind of just want to look at different areas of where we can look to see where we can to provide a good service, but we can also, cut back and make sure that we're not exceeding the revenue that we're bringing in, making sure that we're coming in on budget. So several things that we looked at. We looked at efficient distribution of buses throughout the city, some of the things that have been discussed, charging fees to riders and special programs or in special schools. Three-tier obviously is discussed during the meetings, as part of the discussion when we get into the weeds on some of these things. And the committee is targeting presenting a recommendation to the board sometime in December. So we're looking at, I think there's one board meeting in December, so we're looking at December to start making some recommendations. So quickly, I just wanted to go through some things that we've done departmentally. I have a fantastic staff. They work very hard to try to make sure that we are providing a fantastic service to our families, that we're providing services to the schools, that we're just meeting the needs of the district. And at the same time, we look for areas where we can cut back. and try to save money. So we kind of walk this precarious, fine line between the educational needs and also the financial needs. And like I said, my staff does a fantastic job. So what we've done so far this year is we've consolidated some bus stops and established pickup zones for high schools and middle schools. Net result was a mileage reduction there. We utilize our GPS technology to eliminate returns to bus stops for late students. That was implemented this year. So parents do need to have their students out at the bus stops and on time in order to be picked up. Again, that's a mileage reduction. Are looking at fuel rotations. I look at fuel rotations. We used to be on an every other day fuel rotation with the fleet. We went to a 4-day fuel rotation. The net result of that is we're going to the pump less, so we're purchasing less fuel fiscally. So every year we're purchasing about 2 tankers less fuel. We were basically storing it in the tanks on the lot. We want to ensure that we have the most efficient buses on the longest routes. So we take a look at the fuel efficiencies and we get a list top to bottom. And then we get a list of our longest routes top to bottom and we match them up to make sure that we have our most efficient vehicles on the long routes. Bulk pricing, we're constantly looking at bulk pricing on high usage parts, brakes, drums, brake shoes, brake parts, the things that we're doing on a 6-month rotation. We're making sure that we're getting best pricing for that. This year, due to the route reductions, we were able to pull 19 buses out of service. Those are buses that we no longer have to put sink money into to maintain. So we pulled those vehicles out. Moved monitors to reimbursable routes wherever necessary. Any monitors on a non-special needs route, those monitor salaries are non-reimbursable. So we made sure this year that all of our routes had, where we placed monitors, had special needs students on board so we can get those salaries reimbursed in everywhere we can. Due to the reduction in routes, we also saw a reduction in the staffing needs for drivers and monitors. We utilize our GPS technology to reduce engine idling time. Again, that saves fuel. We significantly reduced the use of charter buses. We've taken some chances, I'll say, on some Fridays, but we've been able to really significantly reduce the need for us to use charter buses. In fact, we've had to use one so far this year. We've reduced mileage approximately 11%. It works out to about 11% daily mileage is what we're seeing in reductions. And then again, last on the slide, we implemented a new payroll software so that we can more closely match our employees' hours, make sure that everybody is within punch compliance. So those are things that we've done already, instituted some of it in the previous school year, but really hit it hard this year. So topics for discussion, some things that we threw out there, and again, I think it was mentioned about the boundary, looking at the boundary analysis. I tried to come up with some ideas, and I did not hold anything back. I threw everything on the table, everything that I could think of that I felt wouldn't be impacted heavily by a boundary change or anything that may come from the boundary analysis. And again, I threw it all out on the table just so we could take a look at everything for discussion. So some of the things we talked about are relocate and operate vocational program to a more central high school location. That would have about $136,000 impact on transportation. That's about how much we're spending now to do the midday transports. Eliminate middle school, high school, after-school activities. Currently, we're spending about $63,000 transporting students for after-school activities. Eliminate all non-funded midday and after-school activity routes. This is representative of like school within a school routing. Currently, we're spending about $27,500 on that. Raise pay-to-ride fee. Currently, our pay-to-ride fee is $150. If we raise that to $175, we could generate an additional $6,475 there. Charge fee to out-of-attendance area transports. And what this is this these are students that we're transporting outside of their homeschool attendance area. So they may be in a program like IB or Washington Gifted, or they may be in fine arts, some program that is causing them to be transported out of that homeschool. All told, if we were to charge the fee there to those students, you're looking at about $77,000 in revenue. Charge fee for cross-district routes such as Washington. If we looked at the Washington routes and charging a fee there, we would generate approximately $31,000 in revenue for Washington. Charge transport fee to Woodruff. If we, again, charge the fee to those students, you'd be looking at about $45,500 in revenue. Eliminate career-based transportation. We're doing I call it Project Perfect. I don't remember what it's career-based transport. There's 6 students there. We're spending about $20,000. Eliminate transportation for out-of-district placements. We are currently transporting student to Germantown Hills for a placement. That's approximately $37,000. Eliminate or grant fund special needs transportation middays. Currently, we're transporting some special needs students midday, about $31,000. Eliminate non-reimbursable transportation, including Roosevelt and Peoria High. All told, that's about $144,000 in cost, and that part is non-reimbursable. Eliminate opt-out for fine arts students at Roosevelt. What we were actually looking at there is giving Roosevelt a 5-8 attendance area and not opting those students out to Harrison, Manual, or to Lincoln if they don't meet the qualifications for the fine arts at Roosevelt. The discussion on the athletic conference, some discussion we had there due to the fact that our conference takes us to Danville, it takes us to Springfield, it takes us to Decatur, it takes us all over the place, and there's a lot of cost involved in transporting these students, almost to Iowa or Indiana for some of their events. And then eliminate the grandfathering and choice. Grandfathering is and choice would be the areas that we had discussed during the realignment, like the annexed area, things like that. If we went ahead and eliminated our choice and our grandfathered for next year, I put that into our database and reran the routes, and I was able to cut about 6 buses just based on that change. So those are some of the things that we've been looking at and been discussing. Next step, right now, we've narrowed it down. We've kind of sat down as a group and said, okay, what do we want to really look at here, or what things do we want to leave alone? So we sat down as a group and we kind of filtered those ways. What do we want to pull out for further discussion? What do we want to leave alone? We've reached out to CityLink. We've made contact with them to bring them into our next meeting that's occurring this week. We want to get some discussion as to what options CityLink may be able to provide to us, like at the high school level, things like that. I'm also interested in getting a different point of view on doing the different types of transports, which is different than what we're used to dealing with, which will help us. And then as that data comes in from Davis Demographics Analysis, the Transportation Subcommittee is going to merge into the Boundary Transportation Subcommittee. That's because any boundary recommendations are going to have a huge impact on transportation, or could. Recommendations, again, will become between December and early January, and then public forums to follow for community input.
We can go back to the page before this, and you mentioned some of these things as relating to special education.
Correct.
We reimburse through special ed on most of those.
We do claim the mileage, yeah. I think special ed is reimbursing at a higher percentage than regular division has been reimbursing.
So this wouldn't really be a savings for transportation. It's covered under the federal government.
Some of it, yes, but these are things that we're doing over and above AM/PM transportation, and on a very small number of students. So if you look at a cost per student, breakout, that 31,000 is spread, I think, across 6 students. So it's the cost per student is really what we're keying in on, areas where we're really spending a lot on a very small amount of students.
Mr. Walker?
This may be a question for Carla. You may be aware of it. How are we doing on the back transportation payments from the state? As I understand it, we were almost a year behind. Are we starting to get caught up on some of those?
Actually, kind of look at Mike for that, too. I think we did get another payment, but we're behind, and that's the problem. We hadn't been getting 100% of
We've
it.
gotten most of the payments, but there's only a couple of payments that we've not gotten for last year at this point. I don't know, it's under $1 million that we're owed by the state right now from last fiscal year.
That's what I mean. I know we're behind close to fiscal year,
Oh,
so.
you haven't got any for this fiscal year yet. So.
Yeah, I was talking about last year. I wasn't that hopeful that we'd get this year's. God forbid, we're almost halfway through the year. But I was just wondering if we had gotten some payments from last year back. Okay.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Briefly, 2. One, first of all, kudos. Holy buckets. I have this metaphor in my head of you're looking at a like great big bowl of spaghetti and then trying to figure out how to straighten everyone out and then flip it around and then, I mean, it's just, the permutations and combinations are amazing. And so I want to say congratulations actually to both of you.
Thank you.
For the tough work. And great on using GPS technology, that's wonderful. And consolidating stops and efficient distribution of buses throughout the city. The only curiosity I have is unanticipated consequences. Are people going to want to move faster to get to a stop because they have less time to do it in, or am I not conceptualizing this? The tendency for, and I'm not casting aspersions on our drivers or anything like this, but and that's why I said it's unanticipated consequences. Will there be that problem where you have to fight the urge to move a little faster because you haven't got the time in the buses?
We haven't seen it. I mean, it's, our drivers are given a route sheet with specific times for them to follow, and that's what they do. So they know, plus our routing software builds in, so if I have a stop with one student, you get 15 seconds to make the stop and 5 seconds per student. So if we create a stop with 30 kids, it takes that into consideration on their timing, so that they know when they're supposed to be there and then when they're supposed to move on.
I'm grinning, guys. Do the students know that?
The students, on the other hand, are,
okay.
I can't control them.
Okay. The other one, you mentioned, and I believe this was, actually there was 3, unfunded midday and after school. And did I hear you say, for one, an example of that would be like school within a school?
Correct.
Okay, and so, but that's just a discussion question. You haven't made a decision, that's just something you came up with?
Correct.
Okay, fine. Because that's pretty important. And the last one, and Ms. Ross, I'm going to riff off of what you mentioned earlier in terms of special ed, but more along the lines, are we okay that we're not skirting dangerously with special ed law in terms of providing things to students that they ought to have by virtue of their diagnosis and their IEP and et cetera, et cetera? That we're not doing something here and then not paying attention to what special ed law tells us?
To the best of my knowledge, they are transition students. This is something, I used to be the special needs supervisor. I didn't do these types of transports when I was the supervisor. This is something that's come in within the past couple of school years. To my understanding, it's written into the IEP, so we have to follow it. The question I always ask is, does it have to be written in the IEP? Is there another way that this could be done? And that's why I threw this out there and attached a cost to it. Okay, it worked for this instance or that instance, so it seems to be the trend that, if it worked once, then we need to do more of it.
Yeah.
But I like to attach the cost to it to remind people that, okay, great, but there is a cost to it. Let's take a look at it. Is this the best way to do this? And that's really why we threw those.
And I'm glad we're in the discussion phase of this, and I'll be very transparent in my advocacy for our special needs little brothers and sisters. And I just want to be cautious that, because sometimes they don't have the loudest voices, that they become the first to be affected by policy changes that might not necessarily be in their best interest. And so I just wanted to be candid about my advocacy for that. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I just wanted to add, these, without question, are not recommendations at all. All we did is had a conversation about what places in transportation operations, where are those places that cost you more per student? And really, that was kind of the barometer. You know, what aspects of our service delivery have a higher cost per student than other aspects? Because the Transportation Efficiency Committee aims to look at inefficiency. So that's kind of how we operationalized inefficiency. And then whatever those items were, we just said, let's talk about. Understanding clearly, we want to make sure that we follow all the rules, regulations, laws, service everybody that needs to be serviced. We just wanted to have a robust discussion. That was the only intent. And the list of topics allows us to do that. And again, these aren't recommendations at all. These are just conversation areas. That's really all they were.
Right. And he's correct, it's because those would not come through the superintendent. We just wanted you to see those. A lot of those, I mean, change athletic conference. I mean, we can't do that single-handedly. We're part of, Big 12, but, you know what I mean? So, but for transparency purposes and to show you all of, the things that we have to take into consideration and the options and the eclectic nature of the business, we wanted you to see it. I could have said, well, I don't want that one and I don't want that one. I said, just leave everything. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to share everything that we were discussing.
Mr. Walther.
Yeah, I just had a question, clarification. The Germantown Hills Special Plan, I'm not aware of what that is.
It's a special needs placement at the Easter Sills and Germantown Hills. We're transporting the one student at that cost. And again, the discussion is around IEP placements. Was the student placed at the best place? Can we service that student within district? If we can, then we can reduce some of those costs. So again, I just threw everything out there.
No, I appreciate that. I think the brainstorming thing's a great idea in doing this and so with it. And the reason I was surprised at that, we usually are the recipient of those kind of things and not the person exporting the student out there. That's why I thought you were going with. That was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, this just happened this year.
Okay.
They moved the program to Germantown.
Oh, okay.
Right?
It's a new program, that's a new program that Easter Seals opened. There's still a program through Children's Home, the Academy for Autism, so there's both programs actually.
Okay.
So that's an autism program.
Yes, ma'am, there's two.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
And again, I knew that we had a boundary, we were going to look at boundaries, and these things kind of aren't tied into a boundary change. So if we were to, say, make a recommendation based on some of these, then I felt fairly confident that we weren't going to turn around and then ask you to go a different direction with it after we've asked you to make approve these recommendations. So I kind of steered away from those kinds of areas that I thought would be impacted by anything that could come out of the boundary study.
Yeah, Josh, you did a nice job, pulling all of that out of the weeds. The only thing we talked about is the charter bus. I need to know when we're going to resort to that. I think we can do some other things.
Yeah, that came up out of the blue.
And it's reduced significantly in the past.
We've used one.
9,
so,
10 times, so that's good it's one, but I think we can get it down to 0. But that's awesome, that list is.
Let me ask Josh, who's on your committee? I mean, how is your committee, with the configuration of the committee that's looking at this? You've got union, you've got parents, because I really want to see parents on some of these committees, right?
That's where
The forums.
we are going to go tomorrow night as a group to the PTO committee. Mick had invited, and I can't say exactly what month, but a couple of months ago, and we hadn't gotten any takers at that time, but we do want to go ahead and explain where we're at again and really try to get some parents involved in this as well. So we're hoping that we'll have a good meeting tomorrow night. And
We also have parent universities every month, so, I mean, you know.
Yeah, that would be another place to-
Basically have that information.
Yes, and we did do
To a
that the
different
last time
segment of
around.
parents.
True.
What about the forums, Carla?
Right. I mean, those are going to be coming up in January, where we are really going to work with, we hope, large groups of parents. And as I said, Sterling and Harrison were two of the sites we were looking at. I can't recall the other site right now, but we're hoping to have 3 sites where we would go ahead and have the parent forums and really get some feedback then. Those have been really successful before, too, but I do agree with you, Parent University was also a successful way of doing
But the
it.
forums are after the fact, though, right? It's education.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like all in the timing of, not exactly, because all the decisions are not going to be made then. Some of these, yes, are step ones, will be moving forward, but it would be then more just for educating, but definitely that, no, we would be taking input as far as some of the more major changes, when we talk boundary changes, that, oh, no, nothing will be decided, we will be, still taking input at that time.
Yeah, and President Ross, Josh and I, we've had this conversation. You know, we try to be creative, like Mr. Walther made a good point regarding the program in Germantown's Hills. And you're thinking, hey, you could probably get someone to do that at a better price, much better price. But for educational purposes, we are not able to do that, right? Because of...
Correct. There's a lot of laws surrounding how we can transport students for curriculum-based activities. So as a district, we're required, the driver would be required to have a school bus driver's permit to do that. Now, we do use a van, which makes it more efficient than using a school bus, but the driver still nonetheless has to have that school bus driver's permit. So we're bound by certain legalities there on how we do the transport, and we make very certain that we're well within those legalities to reduce our liability.
Other questions? Any questions, comments from anyone else? Thank you. I believe you're up next, Mr. Willis.
Hey,
Yes, Willis.
before Mick starts, I did want to clarify, Dan, Mr. Walther's question about money we get from the state. We are getting general state aid from the state twice a month. I don't want to say, tell the news people we aren't getting money. What we're not getting is categoricals. We always, those are the things that are always slow, is the transportation and special ed and stuff. But we are getting general state aid twice a month based on their calculations.
Yeah, thanks for the
I
clarification.
just wanted to be clear. So.
Mr. Willis. Bond, what are you saying? Oh, bond sales update.
Okay. And I'll go down here. I've never seen you guys from this angle before. That's quite a perspective. And I'll be brief. We really wanted to kind of give you an update. There are some proposed changes to federal tax law that could possibly eliminate tax credits connected with our QZAB allocations that we got from ISB. Because of that, our bond counsel is recommending that we sell the bonds that are connected with that QZAB allocation. You'll recall we got a $4.3 million allocation back in October. We got a reallocation of $1.1 million not long ago. We've had some discussions about selling bonds for the $1.1 million because those had to be sold by December 31, 2017. Because of potential tax law changes, bond counsel is recommending that we sell not only the $1.1 million by December 31, but also the $4.3 million. As a result, we've put together in response to that a timeline which basically accomplishes the sale of bonds for not only the $1.1 million QZAB, but also the $4.3 million. And the biggest, I guess, most noteworthy thing on this schedule that might require some conversation at the board level, and I guess an ask from our finance team, is a special board meeting that looks like it will be necessary the week of December 18th in order for us to complete all of the steps of the bond sale. It's a very time-driven, activities-driven sequence of events, and you can only do some things after other things have occurred. And the way basically that it shakes out, we're able to deliver on a more aggressive schedule. It'll just take one additional brief meeting with a quorum of the board in order for us to get through that. So we really just wanted to apprise you of that change, that advice from our bond counsel, and of the fact that we, in order to get this done, would need a special board meeting the week of December 18th. And as you'll recall, the QZAB bonds were the low-interest bonds, which we estimate will save somewhere in the $100,000 to $125,000 a year on interest costs because the interest rate is lower. So they're worth going through this these accelerated steps for. That's really it. Kevin Hyde from Stiefel Nicholas provided the background information. He's here. And you have anything? Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, this is kind of an accelerated one because the state couldn't get rid of all the 2015 allocation. It has to be sold by this December. And so that's how you got the extra 1.1 million. But they just kind of scrambled and called people and said, hey, can you do this? And so, it's great to get the extra allocation, but the time frame is very, very short. And then the proposals in Congress right now, tax credit bonds would be completely eliminated with no phase-in under the House version starting January 1st. Now, truthfully, I kind of think ISB's a little at fault about this because, they've had this allocation for over a year and a half, and they just awarded it in October, even for the ones that were due next year. And if they had awarded it more timely, people would have had more time to plan and get the issues done. But unfortunately, we can't control. I once worked in the legislature. There was a representative had a plaque on his wall that said, "No man's life, liberty, or property are safe as long as Congress is in session." So, I think truer words maybe were never spoken because here we are, with 6 weeks till the end of the year, and the threat, if you don't get it done, you won't be able to get it done. And I mean, there's a lot of other bond implications, not just for you folks, but, all the 501c3 bonds would no longer be tax exempt. So all your hospitals, all your universities, all those kind of bonds would no longer be tax exempt. There's huge tax implications in the public finance.
Question?
I had a
Mr.
quick
Walton?
one. Yeah, if you could go back to that slide. Mick, on the 11/29th, when it said to bidders, so this is going out to different bond companies to do that, is that what that?
These bonds are normally done, Mr. Walton, as private placements. They are not really sold much in the open marketplace.
Okay.
There are very few bidder or buyers out there for tax credit bonds. So
Okay.
typically, we would just bid them out to potential purchasers that would buy and hold them. You or I typically don't buy tax credit bonds.
Yeah, I've limited my portfolio from this.
They're not commonly sold in the individual marketplace or in the retail marketplace.
Okay.
So they're generally only done through private placements, and so that's usually how it's handled. You bid them out, and whoever gives you the best supplemental interest rate, theoretically, they're supposed to hold them for just the tax credit, but for practical purposes, I rarely ever see that happen.
Okay.
Most of the time, there's always a supplemental interest rate required, and a lot of that's driven by the credit worthiness of the issue.
Okay. That was another reason I don't, never mind.
Are other government organizations under the same kind of timeline, like the city of Peoria, the Park District, those who all operate tax credit?
Well, they're very, qualified zoning academy bonds are strictly for schools.
Schools only?
Okay.
Okay.
There
I
are
thought you
other
said
tax credit
nonprofits.
bonds like clean renewable energy bonds, which can even be issued by utility companies for clean renewable energy purposes.
Yeah, I heard you mention hospitals and that.
Hospitals are issuing tax exempt bonds, which you always do, but they won't be able to do that. And all taxing bodies would not be able to do advanced refunding issues, kind of like what you did with the Public Building Commission. Wasn't that an advanced refunding, Nick? It wasn't
Yeah.
correct callable, right?
Right.
So starting January 1st, there will no longer be any tax exempt advanced refunding opportunities. So the market in the municipal marketplace is being flooded right now till the end of the year, with unprecedented volume, just because of the threat that you would not be able to do that refunding for savings going forward.
And we're going to be right there with them, making money for the public. Other questions? I'd be happy to answer them, otherwise.
Just quick,
All right.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
You guys are pretty sure this budget's going through, aren't you? The one that's coming out of the House, because it's affecting Bradley as well and some other, I mean, so we're not going to bet on this one. We're going to be very cautious.
Right, right. I mean, I don't think you can take the chance.
Yeah.
I mean, because if we take the chance and say, let's wait and see what Congress does, and it does pass, then you're done. You can't issue this bonds.
Those are very strange words. Let's wait and see what Congress does. No, I'm not quite sure. I get it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Willis, and thank you, sir. All right. Where are we now?
Audience.
Okay, thank you. We are now at the place on our agenda that provides an opportunity for the members of the community to address the board with your comments and suggestions. There are some issues we are not at liberty to discuss, such as personnel items and other executive session topics. However, if you have a specific personnel concern that needs to be addressed, we'll have a staff person help you. In addition, board members are accessible by phone or emails, and our email is listed at psd150.org. When you are recognized, please come to the podium and state your name. For our records, each person will be given 5 minutes to speak. As a reminder, no one under age 18 may address the board unless accompanied by a parent, guardian, or teacher without the consent of the majority of the board. Our first speaker this evening is Pastor Harvey Burnett.
All right, thank you, Honorable Board Chair and Superintendent. I'm Pastor Harvey Burnett, and in recent days, we have been reminded that although sticks and stones may break our bones, words do harm us. I rise to talk about the words of Officer Schuber, who very much harmed the entire community, black and white, with the words that he levied toward the Dr. Martin Luther King statue. You have the power as a board, as a district, to either heal the wound or to open the wound more deeply. My best evaluation of this situation is one by contrast. This concerns me because I was an officer in District 150. I had been a parent and still am a parent of 15 years with a sterling reputation both among staff and students. Had respect at every level, the ability to deal with students fairly, equitably, and lovingly. What I received some years ago at the end of my employment in security was an error-filled report levied by a principal who disregarded or did not know the instructions my supervisor had given me. By the time that my supervisor's report hit in an effort to correct the misinformation that the principal had levied against me, before the ink had dried, some of the members of this board had decided that my actions were not worthy and befitting of that of a District 150 employee. Some of you were on the board when you decided to remove me from that position for what basically accounted to be, as you can find your notes in executive session because it was discussed, basically being too nice. By contrast, I find it very interesting that my demeanor was one of niceness, but it was unworthy and unbefitting of an employee. But Officer Schubert, who I knew and worked with, insulted not only the black community, but the white community, and every individual that stands for freedom and justice. And yet, we go silent. We understand process. We understand that we can't discuss matters of employment and different things like that. But from experience, I rise to question this board. You may be a different board than the one that was there when I was here. But yet alone, you still have a mind and you still have conscience. I don't know what you'll do, but I can stand and give my experience on the issue, and my prayer is that you will make sure that you do the right thing for no other reason than because it is the right thing to do. Thank you for this space, and thank you for this time.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon Cruz?
I gave you data detailing the failure of year-round school in 16 districts, in 16 cities, in 10 states. All tried what you are contemplating, and some already returned to a traditional calendar by the year 2000. A primary reason for objecting to year-round school was that there is no time for summer school, where students can take additional courses to advance their studies, their education, to gain extra credits, and to make up classes that they have failed during the regular school year. On a year-round calendar, breaks have usually been used only for remediation interventions. When will you offer remediation and the programs you currently offer in the summer? Critics of remediation interventions held during the breaks in year-round school make these negative claims. A 3-week period is insufficient time to deal with a child's academic problems. The interventions are usually optional and therefore not well attended. Researchers say that interventions are too little, too late, and it is better to address learning problems immediately in Saturday classes or with after-school tutoring, plus summer school for making up classes, etc. Overall evaluations of year-round school include these negatives. A Texas study found no significant difference in advancement scores, achievement scores for year-round students versus traditional calendars in a 1980 study. The results of a study in Hawaii in 1994 did not demonstrate significant score increases across the years in any of the content areas. In Louisiana, 9 out of 10 teachers wanted to return to traditional calendar because the intervention efforts were unsuccessful. A 2-year study of test scores for 345,000 North Carolina 3rd through 8th graders showed no evidence of academic superiority with a year-round calendar. Fresno, California, reported staffing and space problems created by a year-round calendar. One California district reported that the year-round school year was 17 days shorter than the traditional year. According to a Florida study, the year-round calendar produces an alarming number of latchkey children whose parents, rather than losing their jobs, leave their children home alone. The NAACP in Wake County, North Carolina, expressed concern over child care problems. After a 3-year experiment with year-round school, Nye County in Nevada returned to a 9-month calendar, citing high costs and lack of educational benefit. One study suggests that it's possible that the frequent breaks in a year-round calendar hurt academic performance. People with more privilege and political clout have reported they don't want their children in these schools. Nye County in Nevada ended its year-round program because it cost roughly $740,000 a year more to operate. My questions include, Peoria teachers often use summers to take college courses or to work. What consolation are you offering them, and how do the colleges feel about year-round school? How could Peoria schedule athletic and other extracurricular activities with schools with traditional calendars? I was, of course, pleased to learn that so many districts value summer school as much as I do. Again, as reinforced by these studies, our students will never have opportunities for reinforcing their educational opportunities without summer school. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Terry Knapp.
Following on that summer school statement, I think it's very important that back in '62, when summer school started, you actually used summer school as a tool for students who were behind, and you counseled their parents and you counseled them to go to summer school for additional help. If they didn't go to summer school, they weren't passed on. Now we just seem to pass everybody on. We give them the computer a little bit and say, you're going to graduate and you're going to do this and you're going to move to the next level. And the kids are not ready. And I think it smacks when you look at the state records of the number of students that were college ready at Manual a couple years ago, it was 4%. Central was 13% college ready, because we're just passing them on. We actually went through a period when I was still teaching at Woodruff where we were passing students from 7th grade, not even sending them to 8th grade, and I know Dr. Crott remembers this, sending them to 8th grade without taking Constitution tests or 8th grade, and the students all came to high school and failed every subject. Every subject. We just moved them on. We cannot do that. We have to have a tool and say, okay, you're behind, you got to go to summer school, or you can't go to the next level. If we don't do that, then we have a crisis on our hands. I do respect and thank Dr. Crott and the Board of Education for giving a 2-year heads up, or a year and a half, or whatever it is, on these committees to look at year-round schools. I went to a committee meeting a couple weeks ago at Glen Oak. There were 6 of us there, 2 administrators and 4 people in the room. Obviously, there were differences of opinion, and one person in the room was from Valeska Hinton, and they said, oh, the year-round school at Valeska Hinton is just wonderful. I have been at this podium for 10 years, 15 years, asking for the research on Valeska Hinton students. I ran into a young man the other night that I coached at Woodruff who's a Caterpillar person. I said, how? And he said, my child's at Valeska Hinton. I said, how is your child at Valeska Hinton? Because I know that child is not an at-risk student. Oh, 33% of those students at Valeska Hinton are not at risk. And I still can't figure that out, how we pay, because we're not reimbursed fully for early childhood education. We pay out of the other students' pockets for affluent people in Peoria to send their kids to Valeska Hinton, about a third of them. $10,000, $12,000, whatever it is, they go down there and they get free early childhood education. I paid for my kids to go to Montessori school at the tune of the same tuition of the students going to Bergen High School. You know, I paid it.
I don't understand the little gimmicks that go on here, that we take care of certain people politically in this community to send them to Valeska Hinton. And then we don't do research to plug student A, his ID in, and when he graduates, because there are at least 6 graduating classes, if not more, of those students that were 3- and 4-year-olds in Valeska Hinton. We don't even know if those kids graduated from high school, and we refuse to do the research. Ms. Cruz should be applauded and lauded for the research that she's done in a couple of weeks. Our administration should be on top of this. They should know all these statistics. I've read these reports, and I hope you read these reports. It's almost unbelievable that we could be talking about and wasting 2 years of people's time talking about this when the research is already done. I lived through the Edison deal. When they came in here, oh, Edison, and Caterpillar wanted it, the chamber wanted it, everybody wanted it. It cost us $40 million. $17 million directly to the Edison Corporation, which no longer exists because the people that ran the Edison Corporation absconded with their IPO money and went to Europe and sold their $38 million houses in the Hamptons and just built Peoria. And we were the last ones in for Edison, and everybody else was getting out. And we were the last ones stuck with Edison. You know, and we do things just, to me, backwards. We jump on the boat Woodruff. The closing of Woodruff and putting in a charter high school, 900 kids put on the street, not even a meeting in the community, not even a 4-3 vote, and it all flew in about 2 months. And all of a sudden, you know, Mayor Artis said, oh, we don't have enough room for 4 high schools. 2 weeks later, we got a new high school. The high school at Quest is failing. One of the long-standing people at that school just quit a couple weeks ago. The athletic director who was there for 6 years quit over the summertime. Didn't even make it to the 7th year or 8th year or whatever it is. They're leaving like flies. How do you think, I know you're saving $1,000 a student at Quest. You're saving $600,000 because they got 600 students. You saved $600,000. Now you tell me you really believe those kids are getting an education?
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Thank you.
Kathleen Diane Jones.
Good evening, dear fellow parents, Superintendent Karat, school board members, and most of all, dear youth of our community. It is an honor to address this audience on the topic of why we stand for the DASH program for comprehensive sexual health education for Peoria Public Schools. To quote Joe Madison, I'm going to keep it where the goats can get it. As a mother of 4 students in District 150, I'm so proud of our Peoria Public Schools for implementing comprehensive sex ed finally. A quick glance at the rates of sexually transmitted infections by county in Illinois will reveal the dubious why behind the need for comprehensive sexual education. Recently, the question of transparent access to the curriculum was raised. The families I've informally surveyed have experienced no problems accessing the detailed curriculum information when it was presented to us. In fact, the curriculum was discussed on our school's Facebook page, and we even talked about the importance of this curriculum at our PTO meeting. I value the opinions of all parents and welcome others' perspectives, however different from my own. I think that an opt-out means for choosing a student's participation is best. The current method for parents to choose not to participate. For 15 years, I've specialized in health education programs, including those provided in schools. And from my professional perspective, this is the best, most appropriate format for this particular program. Anyone interested in defending an about face on that policy should come with research that demonstrates the value of taking a different approach. As a participant in the Peoria City County Health Department's Reproductive Health Committee, we are working with people from all faiths and backgrounds to build understanding and consensus on how to best support our community. Employees of public schools are encouraged to manage their personal value systems when they conflict with public health initiatives, such as that as we have in our district. My experience, by and large, in the Peoria Public Schools is that my kids' teachers and principals have embraced our family, not in spite of who we are, but precisely because of who we are. and how we stand up for what we believe is right. That's what makes us great as Americans. In fact, by the way, I'm a product of District 150, and you all taught me to believe in myself, so you're to blame. Stand up for what's right. Our Catholic guidance counselor at Richwoods has been like a member of the family over the years, guiding our family through the ups and downs of high school and college preparation, and never once have I felt that we were judged as members of the LGBT community. I expect nothing less from any teachers or administrators, period, end of story. Thank you, Dr. Karat and Mr. Elliott, for setting that tone and bearing that standard, and thank you, Patty Simmons, for living out your faith in this way. I'm a certified health educator through my church in our program that has been developed by the Universalist Unitarian and United Church of Christ congregations. In the Our Whole Lives program, we provide supplemental health education to members through our church so that our children grow up not being afraid of who they are or how they're perceived by those who may believe differently. We protect our youth in this way because we believe that is the responsible thing to do. All families are invited to do the same, aligned with their religious beliefs. Many churches provide this type of counsel through parish nursing, all different and unique to their faith. The Illinois Suicide Prevention Alliance, which I'm a member of, reminds us that LGBTQ youth are 6 times more likely to die by suicide than their similarly aged cohorts. 6 times. This dire statistic speaks to the need for comprehensive sex ed that teaches children that they are all worthy and no one should feel a victim to other people's degrading or condescending beliefs. We should consider that when we consider the benefits of teaching youth about what it means to be LGBTQ. Sadly, I can introduce you to some parents who wish that their child had been educated about their wholeness prior to their child's suicide. Check out the Trevor Project to learn more about nationwide life-saving efforts aimed at this population, and contact 1-800-273-TALK if you know someone who's at risk. As healthcare advocates, we state clearly, without apology, we will not be demonized. We will not allow others in positions of power to denigrate our status or scapegoat us. The AIDS crisis is a terribly appropriate demonstration of what happens when a vulnerable segment of society is neglected or maligned. We are not going back to the healthcare policies of the 1980s. We have learned too much, and we've assumed agency in our communities and will not abide by it. We value all parents' opinions, but do not abide by anyone in the public sphere paid for by taxpayers' contributions to our public schools, using their power and privilege to malign my family or make transgender individual feel less than. We hope that individuals speak up in such a way that the families of our community do not feel ostracized. We remain steadfast and immovable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Hoffbauer.
If y'all have read your email, this won't come as any new news to you. I'll read a short part of what I wrote to the Journal-Star and to all of you. Journal-Star didn't seem fit to print it, but it's on our comprehensive sex education. Keeping children ignorant of ways to protect their health should they decide at some point to not abstain from sexual contact is a real disservice to their well-being. Teaching them the benefits of abstaining is the parent's right and obligation. Making the curriculum opt-in would almost certainly deprive many children of said education due to the negligence on many parents' parts to take the action necessary to opt in. These would likely be the children in the most need of this knowledge. In Peoria, in Illinois, Peoria is being number 1 in the rate of gonorrhea and number 2 in the rate of chlamydia, and one of the highest rates of teen pregnancy in the nation, can most likely be laid on the doorstep of years of abstinence-based classes. Explicit, comprehensive, evidence-based education will serve the community and children well. A teacher's religious beliefs should not be allowed to keep children ignorant. This knowledge is just too important to allow that to happen. I implore you, keep up the good work with the education that you have. Thank you.
Cheryl Hoffbar.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Hofbauer, and it's a pleasure to speak with the board today. My daughter, who's 38, 39, is an alumni of Peoria Central, so we have long, deep roots with District 150. I want to address the comprehensive sex health curriculum. Young people have questions, lots of questions regarding their sexuality. I posit that young adults, junior high age or even younger, are aware of their sexuality and especially benefited by accurate, science-based information that is now provided by the Peoria Public School Comprehensive Sex Health Curriculum. My applause is aimed at your efforts, and it is deafening. Thank you.
Georgia Evans.
Good evening. I would like to thank you for supporting the education that you're giving our children. Detailed education. We all want the same thing. We all want our kids to be good, healthy adults, making really good, healthy decisions. And if we don't give the education so that they can make those good decisions, you've heard of all the diseases and all the possibilities, and it would just go downhill from there. I support you continuing to support sex education.
And I apologize, I'm going to not do well on this name. Ramat Nalla? I get somewhere close?
Yes, you got it.
Thank you.
Dr. Karat, board members, thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm also here to speak in support of comprehensive sex education. I'm a physician, I'm a mother, and I also serve on the board of the Peoria Health Department. And I'm not going to repeat everything that has already been said. I'm also here to applaud you for supporting comprehensive sex education, not just because you're supporting it, but because it's the right thing to do. It is actually supported by evidence-based science. So I'm going to share a few statistics with you, so pardon me for that. For the last 20 years or so, the federal government has spent over $1.5 million in support of abstinence-only sex education. Abraham Lincoln? Somebody said that if you're doing the same thing and it's producing the same result, it's time to do something differently. I don't think we are proud to be known as a community that has the highest rate of gonorrhea, the second rate of chlamydia, some of the highest rates in the nation for teenage pregnancy. And when you actually substratify to the schools that our kids go to, the zip codes where they live, some of the disparity, especially amongst the African American kids compared to their Caucasian counterparts, the numbers are very, very embarrassing. The gonorrhea rates in some zip code is 30 times higher than among blacks compared to their white counterparts. So I don't want to belabor it. We all know about these numbers. And so if we've been doing the same thing and it's producing the same result, and we're all very embarrassed about it, we are doing the right thing now by changing our course of action. So why do we support comprehensive sex education? It helps youth delay onset of sexual activity, contrary to what people who are proponents of abstinence-only sex education say. It reduces the frequency of sexual activity. It reduces the number of sexual partners. It increases condom and contraceptive use, hence reducing STDs and unplanned pregnancies. The studies have shown that youth participating in comprehensive sex education are not more likely to become sexually active. People tend to say, if you tell my kid about sex, they are going to initiate sex. Actually, science proves otherwise. They are not more likely to increase sexual activity, and they are not less likely to experience negative sexual health outcomes. They are more likely to respect themselves, their autonomy, and respect others, some of which will have issues nowadays, even into adulthood. To be more, also, when I now compare it with abstinence only, I'm going to keep it very short. The data for abstinence-only programs actually says students who participated in abstinence-only programs were no more likely to abstain from sex than their other students. They have no positive changes in sexual behaviors. The youth did not decrease their number of sexual partners over time. The STD rates that did not decrease. The pregnancy rates did not decrease. So if we look at the global effect, the economic effect of sexually transmitted diseases, the health effect, as well as the economic effect of teenage pregnancy, we're going to have higher high school dropout rates, less economic participation in the society, and just a vicious cycle of families remaining in the welfare system. I see this in my professional lives. I see children having children. I see kids sucking their thumbs while they are in labor. Because they are still kids, they don't know what is about to happen to their lives. So without further ado, I'm imploring you to continue to do what you're doing. We actually need to do more. Peoria needs to stay off the map of these bad statistics. Thank you very much.
Mr. Amir Arsami.
Good evening, President Ross, respected board members, and Dr. Karat. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Ahmed for her comments. I definitely agree with her. I spoke about the same topic about a month ago. It's time to do something different since we've been just doing the same thing over and over again. And by the way, Dr. Ahmed, she was named the Family Physician of the Year. So she's actually an authority in her field. So and she'll be representing actually the state of Illinois nationally. So we hope her good luck in her pursuit for that award. But thank you again, Doctor. So here, I'm here just for 2 points. First, a couple weeks ago, I was at the City Council and I proposed an initiative, and I'm hoping that you guys can help me to spread the word out and just find more sponsors. It's a sponsorship, and again, I've been advocating for that issue for quite some time. Lack of busing for children who are living in District 150 within less than 1.5 miles, right, from their so home to school. If it's less than 1.5 miles, they will end up walking. Thankfully, thank God, last year we were thankful enough and we were lucky not to have a brutal winter. So far things have been okay still, but I'm just, again, we can't just wait until it happens and then blame ourselves. So we should be prepared. So I'm here to ask you guys, what have you done, or what are you doing, or what's the process? Are you doing anything about the school busing? I've had, a few conversations privately with some of you, and there was some talking about, okay, well, we're trying to do something. So I'd like to get a status on that. Second thing, regarding the sponsorship, and again, let me backtrack for a little bit here. When I talk about sponsorship, I meant a sponsorship from the public. So if us as a school district, we are getting that funding from the state, right? But if we don't have enough money, that doesn't mean that a lot of our citizens of our city will not help. Actually, there's many people that I've talked to already since last year, when I started advocating for funding sponsorship for that program, and they are willing to privately fund this. And I talked to some lawyers, and we have already put like some some paperwork in place so that any of these families who are interested in getting their kids transferred to school or transported to school through our service, they're going to just have to sign some paper documents, and we'll just fund it. And I'll start by myself, and I pledge to sponsor 10 students for the upcoming year. And I'm hoping that every citizen of Peoria just do at least their part. If they can sponsor one student or tell somebody that they could sponsor and, is able to help out in some shape or form, please do so, because we desperately need it. And I'll conclude by saying, just for the, on your last meeting for the school year 2016-2017, you took a major decision here. And again, I really applaud Dr. Karat for all of her efforts. She's done, I think, an amazing job in everything. It just, again, it's about the process itself. When we talked about, raising a salary from $214,000 to $225,000, without doing a proper evaluation, it makes me question the process. And again, while our kids are walking to school, we are paying top dollars to and I'm not saying Dr. Carl doesn't deserve it, absolutely. I mean, she's a great woman, she's done amazing work, but I'm just saying, how do we set our priorities here? We have kids walking to school because we cannot afford to send these kids on a school bus, yet we are paying top dollars. Thank you very much.
Is there any response to audience presentation? Go ahead, Mr. Walter.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank a number of individuals. Ms. Cruz, Mr. Knapp, thank you for the research. We'll take a chance to look at this. This is, we appreciate the research you've done on that. For all the people who spoke in favor of our comprehensive sexual program, I appreciate your input. We do need to hear that. I think those of us who are on the board that are in favor of it are not opposed to it. I think what we've been listening to is trying to get input from the community. There are some people that think there are parts of it that may need to be tweaked, so we have to listen to that too. But just speaking for myself, I'm absolutely in favor of it. I think it's something we should continue. But I appreciate you having the courage to come and speak to us to do that. It's important that we hear this, pro and con, but we need to hear that. But I really appreciate you taking the time to address the board. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. Oh, and Amir, I appreciate your comment too on the transportation thing. I know that's something you've been very passionate about, but you also offered some solutions. And it's easy, a lot of times we get people up here that complain, but we don't have alternatives. And so I appreciate you for doing that too. So thank you.
Okay. Information items, expenditures over $2,500. Are there any comments or questions of Mr. Willis? Seeing none, report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act and the status of such requests.
Yes, Madam President, since our last board meeting on October 10th, we received 11 requests. Out of those, 6 were filled. There are 2 pending requests noted. There were 2 pending requests noted on October 10th, and these were also filled. So as of today, we have received 62 requests for this calendar year. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just wait until people exit. In case you were wondering, we're not finished yet. It looks like maybe we're finished. Consent agenda, Mr. Adler.
The consent agenda consists of the following 8 items. Item number 1, gifts to the school district. This meeting, $150. Year-to-date, $47,271.07. Item number 2 is the payment of bills. Item number 3 is the payment for travel. Item number 4 is the human resources report. Item 5 is the Richwoods HVAC abatement. Item 6 is the Woodruff re-roofing. Item 7 is the resolution to auction Greeley properties. And item number 8 is a health life safety amendment related to the HVAC projects funded with county school facilities sales tax monies. And that is the entirety of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any items any board member wish to pull for a separate vote? We have a motion and a second.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda in its entirety.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions on any item? Thank you. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Deliberation agenda, suspension review.
Item 9, that the suspension review listed on the report dated November 27, 2017 be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Expulsions.
That the expulsions listed on the report dated November 27, 2017 be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Expulsions with the expulsions held in abeyance.
That expulsions with the expulsion held in abeyance listed on the report dated November 27, 2017 be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Revocation of expulsions held in abeyance.
That the revocation of expulsions held in abeyance listed on the report November 27, 2017 be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Revocation of board probation.
That the revocation of board probation listed on the report dated November 27, 2017 be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Are there any presentations or suggestions by board members? Seeing none, any reports from board committees? Mr. Walter.
We're having a building committee meeting November 30th at 9 o'clock.
Is that here in the building?
It's here in the building at the media room.
All right. Mr. Adler?
The Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee will meet on Wednesday, December 6th. And did we say 6 p.m., Daphne?
I thought it was 5:30.
5:30? Okay, 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
And we'll be kind of doing something a little bit different. We're going to have some district presentations, particularly related to the new grading procedure, as well as the new academic achievement data that we received recently. And then we'll take questions from the public.
Okay. Mr. Shaw?
The policy committee will meet Wednesday, December 13th at 9:30 a.m.
Okay. The Board of Education will meet tomorrow as executive session at 4 o'clock for board self-evaluation. We will open in public session and then immediately move into closed session. So.
It won't be nearly as fun as tonight.
Okay, is there any other items or anything else for the good of this business meeting?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.